Oh man, I think I need to get a new mic. This is like the third recording before it finally started to register my voice. I'm actually recording. Hello everyone, I decided I would make a video on a topic that I'm sure many of you might be interested in, which would be my general thoughts on the current state of NGS. This will specifically be about gearing, loot, and content, as well as ARKS Records. So let's talk about gearing. Now, I'm not going to turn this into a rant about how so many players are poorly geared, even though that is very much a problem, but rather turn it around to how the difference between someone using best in slot and not best in slot gear is so massive at this point, but it's not even remotely funny. I mean, the accessibility of capsules ranges so massively now. Do I even need to invoke how difficult it is to get Grand Dreadkeeper 2 when every source of Dreadkeeper 5 is from Rayered Gorge or a seasonal shop? Which, by the way, we aren't getting a seasonal this month, so that's going to be 2 months without any way of getting Dreadkeeper 5. The sources are very much dry. It's actually pretty crazy we haven't gotten LC versions of these capsules yet to bridge the gap. Also, it's extremely expensive to both enhance weapons and units. It's a huge missing provided it's not done during an enhancement campaign, which, by the way, there's an enhancement campaign going on right now and it lasts until the 17th, so I recommend you do it with your Excelio weapon and Exorcist units. Anyways, it's certainly also not helping that there's very little incentive to actually get this gear because, well, high-end content is generally seen as unrewarding by many, and there isn't enough content to run where it's actually warranted. It leads to a cycle of where people don't want to gear up because there's nothing to warrant gearing up, and then when there's something where gearing up actually helps that comes out, people don't want to run it because they aren't geared, so it's too difficult for them and the loot isn't good. I've actually seen this myself quite a bit in my own alliance where people think their gear isn't up to snuff, but in reality, it's not as much of a gear thing, but it still does play a part depending on who you're playing with, I guess. Anyways, I actually decided to pug Dalian very recently to see how pugging was like, and well, do I even want to invoke the Braver Hunter monstrosity I ran into that was only using sword normal attacks and weapon action, and you know, they also died 5 times. Look, I'm not trying to be a bully, it felt very much worth mentioning. Anyways, besides that, though, I actually cleared more than failed, so it's not like you even need best in slot gear anyways. You just need gear that is good. You might cut it close, but it's really not required. NGS and unrewarding content kind of go hand in hand, and while I can kind of understand wanting to balance difficult content like Dalian's loot so people don't miss out on anything, it also kind of just invalidates the content to some extent, because I imagine most people running Malignant Darkfall's Dalian don't actually need the gear as much anyways, and it becomes more of a nice bonus rather than making it worth farming long term, because I don't know about you guys, but chasing after Wingard Armadi is not worth it when it's a chase drop. It's a fun fight though, so credit where credit is due. I actually really like the improvement that Malignant Darkfall's Dalian actually brings to the table. I think this could be fixed by adding more weapon camos in the content, potentially ones not extremely rare like chase camos, but like the Ruinate camos or Wingard and Flugel Almaty like I mentioned earlier, and maybe go back to even releasing color variants emotions would be a step in the right direction. There are some instances of where Sega would release CV motions in the content, like Darkfall's Interception, Cannonball Strike, Orgnal Tower, even Geometric Labyrinth Rank 1 has like a CV chase motion. I mean, that's kind of still part of the problem, but still. Notable loot does always not have to be specific to gearing, as cosmetics do play a part in stuff people would want to run content for, which is basically the point that I'm trying to get across. I think that one chase weapon camo isn't really incentive enough, but maybe having 3 or 4 options that aren't specifically weapon camos but could be a mix of weapon camos and motions would make it very much worth it. ARKS records are another problem I feel because a lot of records have devolved into farming for crits due to how short they can go, and more recently for some bosses, some ARKS records have devolved into prejudging Frayed Red Ride to launch at the boss the moment the quest starts for big damage. I don't know about you, but like I'm not really willing to make an entirely new weapon just so I can be able to get a faster time. I mean, you know, I'm playing Bouncer. I'm not playing Bouncer to use a Waker Photon Art. But besides that, gearing also plays a part here because for some specific records, you can have a massive advantage by using an unwixed weapon. And I mean, personally speaking here, like I said, I can't be asked to make a whole new weapon just to compete. It's part of why I don't really push as much in ARKS Records as I used to. I always think to myself, I should do this, I can do this, but it's really not worth it, and I just settle for whatever I can with gold. It would be nice if gear could be standardized for records, honestly, and maybe, have records split into categories again by class like they used to, but you can only get badges for like one category in order to balance how many badges you can get. To close this off, I do really like NGS and want the best for it. As for myself, personally, I wish content could be more fun, like the current limited quest Zenith Firefight or Malignant Darkfall Stallion, but have loot that was more interesting and appealing. I'm not asking for weapon-specific drops tied to the content, but I do miss the days of farming certain quests for weapon camo cosmetics. While rare, they still actually dropped. An example of this was back in base PSO2 and even in NGS, I would constantly run the Mother Omnipotent solo trigger. I think that's the name of the quest, it's been forever. Anyways, I would run that quest for the weapon camos Jolting Blitzkrieg, Alchemic Genesis, Ray Glitter, and Wraith again. And I run that quest probably like over 100 of times, and I got pretty much all the weapon camos, but honestly, it's probably not going to be like that for everyone, but still, the weapon camos actually dropped, so I can at least get excited at the end of every quest. I don't really get that feeling when I'm running Malignant Darkfall Stallion. I don't expect to get a Wingard Almaty, and I don't think I'll ever get one. The same kind of applies for the Ruinae weapon camos. Also, I kind of missed how there were like SSAs in base that were tied specifically to certain quests. It would be nice that when we get extra EX-Hogs, we can get EX-Hogs that only drop in specific quests to, give quests some reason to farm over other quests if you're looking for a certain EX-Hog combination that only drops in that quest. Food for thought. It would be an improvement if it was like that. So between gearing, loot, and records, NGS still has quite a way for things to go. I mean, it's significantly better than it was at launch, but there's still a lot of glaring issues which need to be addressed, and I hope they get addressed so that, NGS can be a better game. Anyways, I guess you could call it my thoughts on the current state of the game. I didn't want to go too long, but I think I get my point across that I do like this game. I just have some problems with it, and yeah, I just want the game to improve. Anyways, if you have thoughts of your own about this topic, the state of NGS, feel free to do so in the comments, and I'll be happy to respond, assuming I can think of something beyond the witty remark. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. I originally wasn't going to do a video about this, but I figured, maybe it would be interesting to do this, so I guess I did it anyways. So, no one even asked for it, but here I am.